first introduce yourself to the newcomers, and then you can proceed.
Sure. Maybe a little bit about myself. My name is Priyasha, and I'm a corporate lawyer based in the UAE. So I graduated from NLU Jodhpur in 2010. I worked at Tri-Legal Mumbai for about 5 years in the corporate practice. And that's when I moved to Dubai. So I was working in a firm in Dubai for about 4 years. And then recently I decided that towards the end of last year, I wanted to do something of my own. So I've set up my own law firm in the UAE, as well as because of my interest in technology. I've been involved in a few legal tech initiatives. One is, of course, Resigo, which I'm going to be discussing today. And the second is I'm also the founder of an app called the QLTS Geek, which is essentially an app which helps lawyers qualify as a solicitor in the UK. So yeah, that's all about me, and I'm very excited to be sharing my experiences with all of you. And thank you, Samanika, for having us with all of you today. So maybe should I start with my presentation? Maybe that would be the next.
Yeah, because the topic says job winning resume. So how do you define a job winning resume to begin with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think basically, as I'm going to be again mentioning on today's webinar, the job of your resume is to get you an interview. So essentially, what you need to make sure is that your resume follows like a certain market standard practice, and it's something that you sort of you need to match what the employer is looking for. So if your resume does that job, then that's definitely going to get you an interview, and then that's again going to lead you to getting a job. So I think the key thing is to make sure that your resume is not rejected or doesn't end up in somebody's dustbin, because unfortunately sometimes that happens. So there's a lot of things that goes into getting a job. So of course, like the first step is having a resume which actually lands you an interview.
Right. So please tell us, how can somebody build that job winning resume?
Sure, perfect. So what I'm going to do is today's session is going to be quite interactive, where I'll be interacting with all of you. So let me just share my screen, and we can actually I'm going to make you do a little bit of work today. So let me just share my screen. Great. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Resigo before I begin. So Resigo is essentially an initiative of Recruivia, which is a legal recruitment company, and this company is trying to change the face of legal recruitment, because there are a lot of issues with legal recruitment in general. And so this company has actually been started by lawyers, and we're sort of trying to make sure that the legal recruitment improves in India, and not just in India, but in the world as well. So before I begin, and a couple of, in fact, during the course of, building various softwares in the legal recruitment sphere, one of the areas that we realized was an issue was that candidates didn't really know how to draft their resume. And we were seeing so many different formats which technically wouldn't really work in today's world. And so we realized that it's important for us to give some sort of, it's important to have a product which gives guidance on how to build a resume. And that's how, towards the end of last year, we started working on Resigo, so that, lawyers and law students have a better idea of, how to build their law resume. So today's session, like I said, is interactive. So if you could actually log on to this website, menti.com. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. You can do that from your phone. That would actually be easier, because then on your screens, you can then, have a look at the presentation. So if you have your smartphones on you, then log on to www.menti.com. I'm going to just put it on the chat. And then you can actually click on, and then
Facebook leti.
Priyasha, sorry to interrupt you. Is the background noise coming from your end or somebody else?
Yeah, I think it's somebody else. It's just
Okay.
maybe somebody needs to.
I'm extremely sorry for that. I request participants to kindly control. Just give it.
Okay. Let me see if we can mute. I think there's. It's probably coming from Vidhu.
Vidhu, can you please mute yourself?
It's coming from Swati. So maybe if you, so Monica, if you can just mute
Yeah, I'll just
Swati.
change the settings. Just give me 1 minute.
Sure. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm extremely sorry for that.
No, it's okay.
Screen again.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay.
Now you can share it.
Yeah, sure. Great. So if you've all logged into menti.com and then just enter the code, you'd be able to just, participate in all the questions that I'm asking. So if you've logged in, which I'm also going to do right now with all of you, then just click on the heart button. So then I know that all of you are with me. Great. Yeah, that's good to see all of you participating. Perfect. Great. So I'm gonna move on to the next. Great. So I've actually already given you an introduction to myself. So what I would just, we're actually working on a lot of updates to Resigo. So please do follow us on social media, which is we're quite active on LinkedIn. You can follow both Resigo and QLTS Geek. There's a lot of updates, and we're also constantly adding features to our product. So we've just launched and we're in the process of collecting feedback from users. We're making a lot of changes to improve our product. So please do watch this space. Okay. Great. So I'm going to quickly go over today's agenda. I'm going to cover resume writing tips, and this is something that I'm also going to be doing it in detail as we build our resume together, because the objective today is all of you should have a resume at the end of this session. I'm also going to cover how to defeat the ATS. Now, more on this during the course of the presentation. I'm also going to cover networking tips, because as all of us know, with experienced lawyers, it's not just about having a great resume and a great profile. It's also about networking, which is super important for all lawyers. And then, of course, the last bit, which is actually the most exciting part, is where we all build our resume together. And I'm also going to be building mine along with all of you. And then during the course of building your resume, I'm going to be addressing all your questions. Great. So yeah, perfect. A lot of you have already answered this question, so that's cool. So how many? I just wanted to get an idea about what your experience levels are. So based on that, it will also help me during the course of the presentation. So if a little bit,
if some participants can write in the chat box whether you have any prior experience, work experience, and if yes, which range is it falling between 0 to 3, 4 to 7, or more than 8?
Yeah, great. I can see some of you have already answered, so that's really great. Perfect. That's cool. So a lot of you are between 0 to 3 years experience. That's interesting. That's a good demographic. Yeah, perfect. Good to see all of you participating. And for those who've just joined, you can go to www.menti.com. You can enter the code. You can enter into this website on your smartphones, and once you visit the website, you can enter this code, and that's how you can participate in this these questions. So if you've just logged in, then if you just joined today's session, then just log in to your smartphones on this website. Perfect. So that's very good for us to know. Now, what I'm going to do is I will quickly show you some sample resumes from the best law schools in the world, which is Harvard Law School and Stanford Law School. And what I want you to do is I want you to make a few observations on these resumes. I want you to just think about 2 or 3 words that come to your mind when you see these resumes. So one is this. If you look into your phone, it's not going to be noticeable. So what I'll do is I'll just show to you on my screen itself, which is this one. So this is a sample Harvard Law School resume, and this is somebody with experience. So you can have a quick look at the CV. I don't need you to go through the details, but I just want you to make a few, like 2 or 3 observations. So this is somebody who has just graduated from Harvard Law School, and this person has prior work experience. So this is one example of a CV, and this is an example of a Stanford Law School resume. So this is a corporate lawyer CV. It's very simple CV, just a 1-pager. And then this is another litigation CV. I mean, this is more like just a sample recommendation from the law school. But here again, you will get an idea of how it's structured. So yeah, I mean, if you've, so the idea was just to show you and, give you an idea about how these CVs are structured and to, think about 2 or 3 words. So that's the question that I'm now going to ask you. And if you can enter those on your phones, what are your observations on the above resumes that we've just seen? So what you can do is if you've just come in, then you can log on to menti.com, enter the code on your phone, and then you can answer these questions. So what were your observations on the resumes that we've just seen? Okay, yeah, that's a simple, definitely, if they were very simple. They were concise as well. Let's see, simple, elegant. Yeah, that's very good observation. Specific and crisp, definitely very crisp. Structured, a very good observation. Simple formatting, that's again very true. There's no fancy formatting in those resumes, very easy to read. Max 2-page, yes. That's something that all of us will be aiming at today. It's descriptive, to the point. Wow, just some amazing observations there. Good formatting, precise, yes. Descriptive, yeah, I mean, they've described their work experience really well. It's compact. Highlighted achievements, yes. It's important to highlight your achievements in any CV that you draft. Great. So I think some very good observations out there, and that's quite interesting that all of you made these observations. Great. So I think, yeah, I think these are exactly some of the points that I was looking for. No tables, yes, that's a very good point. So as we go along today's session, we're going to be constantly referring back to some of the CVs that we've seen. And we're also going to make sure that we build CVs in a similar way. So that's the objective for today's session. Now, before I move on to building our CVs, I'm just going to cover a few things that's important for us to just discuss. So one is, as I mentioned initially in my introduction, your resume is essentially your sales tool. So the idea, the job of your resume is to land you an interview in the employers, and to the employer where you've actually made your application. It is the first impression. More often than not, if you haven't met the partner of a law firm, then it is going to be the first impression that you're going to be making with the partner. So you need to make sure that it is the best impression. So if you've not really worked on your CV, if you've included a lot of irrelevant experience in your CV, then most likely you might not get, you might not be successful in getting through the door. This is also an important point. The reader of your resume, they're not really going to spend more than 30 seconds looking at your resume and judging it. Like, for example, today we've seen the sample resumes from Harvard Law School and Stanford Law School graduates. And, you probably made a quick judgment in the first 15 seconds itself. In fact, a lot of your observations today, they were quite to the point. And you actually made those observations just within 15 to 30 seconds. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you send your resume to a law firm partner. They are not going to spend more than 15 to 20 seconds judging it. If they think it's worthwhile, then they will spend more time reviewing it. But in 15 to 20 seconds, if they think that, oh, you know what, this is not of interest to me, then unfortunately, it's going to land up in, like I said, the trash bin. The third part is very important, which is you also need to remember who you're sending your application to. A lot of times I see, and this is something that I made a mistake as well early on in my career. I would always just have I used to have a standard CV and I would keep sending it for all my applications. Then I realized that was a mistake, because you need to make sure that your CV is relevant to the person who you're sending it to. So let's say you're writing to a law firm, then you need to be highlighting certain experiences which are more law firm related. On the other hand, if you're sending your CV to a nonprofit, you are going to focus a little bit more on maybe, let's say, a nonprofit experience or your advisory and compliance experience. If you're writing to a judge, you'll have to dramatically change your CV and make sure that you're just highlighting the experience that's relevant to the judge. A judge is not going to be interested in seeing your corporate law experience as much as, let's say, the experience that you've had while you, let's say, did some litigation work. So it's important to keep tailoring your resume according to the person who you're sending it to. Also keep in mind the job description, because if you're sending your resume again for an in-house opportunity, they generally have a very detailed job description. So you need to make sure that you're using the right keywords. So for example, if the in-house resume says we're looking for a mergers and acquisition and joint venture lawyer, then you need to make sure that your CV also uses these similar keywords. You need to highlight the experience where you've actually worked on M&A and joint venture matters, because that's how you're going to catch the attention of the reader or the hiring manager. Then, of course, this is another point that you've already identified when we just saw those CVs earlier today, which is your CV needs to be descriptive. So make sure that you're describing your work experience really well. because what happens is some people don't really mention too much of their work experience. They don't describe what they've worked on with their previous employers, and so the hiring manager is not really able to understand what experience you bring to the table. And then these are some adjectives which literally describe the CVs that we just saw today. The CVs that we saw today from Harvard Law School and Stanford Law School, they were concise, they were accurate, they were error-free, well-organized, clear, just easy to read, and just visually pleasing as well. Sometimes, the most simple things are actually visually pleasing, and we don't really need to go create a fancy CV to catch attention. And then, of course, a very important point is your resume should beat the ATS. And this is something that we've seen as a legal recruitment company quite a lot. And I'm going to touch upon this a little bit more in detail. But if you don't know exactly how an ATS affects your CV or what an ATS is, then if you can just, click on the question mark on your screen. And then I'll talk about it a little bit more in detail. Great, that's a lot of you. For those who've just joined, you can log on to menti.com and enter the code, and you'd be able to participate in all these questions. You can do that from your smartphone. Okay, so I'm going to quickly tell you a little bit about the ATS. So the ATS is essentially an applicant tracking system. It's a computer software that scans, sorts, and cherry picks certain CVs based on how they match to the job description of a particular job. Now, why do recruiters or hiring managers use the ATS? That's because in today's world, a recruiter gets so many applications. So for example, even if you've seen on LinkedIn, if you've applied to a job on LinkedIn, you'll see that there've been at least 500 to 1,000 applicants. Now, it's not possible for a human being to actually go through each of these 500 to 1,000 applications. So what do recruiters do? They actually use a software, which is the ATS. So they put all these 500 to 1,000 resumes through the software. The software scans all the resumes. It picks out the right resumes based on the keywords, and then it shortlists, let's say maybe 20 to 30 resumes. Because I remember that the partner of a law firm or even the general counsel of a large MNC, they don't have the time to actually sit and go through all these CVs, which is why they either would be using the ATS, which is quite often, or they would generally ask their friends or their acquaintances for references. So the thing about the ATS is that, just to again reiterate, a computer, as we've all learned earlier in our life, is a dumb creature. So if you have a complicated CV, what's going to happen is that the software is not going to be able to read your CV. If you have a lot of pictures, if you have a lot of tables, it's going to be too complicated for the software. And what's going to happen is that the software is most likely going to reject your CV. And this is a really bad outcome for somebody who is actually a really good candidate. And that's why one of the things that you might notice is that when you apply for jobs through job boards or through LinkedIn, where there's mass applications happening, sometimes you could be a really good candidate, but you're actually not going to be shortlisted. And one of the reasons could potentially be your resume, because it's not ATS friendly. On the other hand, if you recollect the CVs that we saw earlier today, which is the CVs from graduates of Harvard Law School and Stanford Law School, they were very simple. They were just words. There was no fancy designs or boxes or pictures. So their CVs were ATS friendly. And if they were to put their CVs through an ATS software, the software would be able to recognize the words, and it would be able to recognize the different section headings of the resumes, and it will pass through an ATS. So it's very important, and this is something that a lot of us don't know. It's very important for our CVs to be ATS friendly in order to, especially when you're applying for, mass applications, or if you know that the hiring manager is receiving a lot of applications. And we're also, just to give you a quick overview, we've also, because we're a legal recruitment company, we do work with a lot of softwares which scans CVs. And one of the things that we've noticed is that, if the CV is too complicated, if it's got too many tables, then the software just doesn't know how to read it, and the CV gets rejected. So you've seen it firsthand, and I, as a lawyer, I've seen it firsthand. So it's just so important to have an ATS friendly resume. So this is the picture of, again, another resume. You don't need to read the details, but I just want you to have a look at this resume. It looks quite neat and professional, but I want you to, again, quickly answer this question. And my question is this CV ATS friendly? If you think yes, then click on the thumbs up button. And if you think no, then click on the thumbs down. So the question is, will this CV pass through an ATS? Yeah, I think a lot of you did get, a lot of you were right, are right. Basically, this CV, it looks really professional, but what's going to happen is that the ATS is likely going to get confused, because it's not going to be able to understand all these pictures. There's a table out here, and also this infographic. It's not going to be able to understand. It's too complicated for a software to understand. Especially nowadays, nobody really talks about, I mean, if you're sending it directly to a partner, it's a different story. Maybe this makes sense. But, if a software were to read this, they would probably get confused, because it's like, okay, corporate law 85%, criminal law 90%. What does that mean? A software would probably reject this, most likely reject the CV. Although it actually looks really good, and I'm sure the applicant has spent a lot of time working on the CV. Unfortunately, the ATS is most likely going to reject this. So how do we defeat the ATS? And I'm going to cover a few points that all of us should keep in mind when we're drafting our CVs. One is no fancy formats, charts, graphics, or tables. As I just mentioned, the moment you have a fancy format with a lot of pictures, the computer or the ATS is going to get confused, and the software will not really be able to read your CV. In fact, a lot of people also do this. Like, for example, they put logos of the companies that they work for. So, for example, if they work for Apple, they would put the Apple logo, and it looks really good, but it's not ATS friendly. Use the right keywords, because an ATS's job is to find the right candidate based on the job description. So let's say that the job description is looking for a corporate lawyer with mergers and acquisition experience, joint venture experience, compliance experience. Now, if that's what's mentioned in the job description, then you need to make sure that your CV also has similar keywords. So when you're working on your work experience description, make sure that you're using the similar keywords, or even the same keywords, and highlight the experience that's relevant to the job description. So, if you've actually worked on mergers and acquisitions and joint ventures, make sure that you're actually using those keywords in your CV, because that's what the ATS is going to do. They're going to match your CV with the job description. So if you don't have those keywords, then, the software will come to the conclusion that you don't have the relevant experience, and your CV, again, will not get shortlisted. Again, be careful with your headers and footers. Try and put all your information outside the header or footer, because if you put your contact information, a lot of people tend to do that in your header, then the software will not really pick it up. Then, of course, this is using the right file types. I'm sure most of you would anyways be creating your CV on doc or PDF. So make sure that you stick to these standard formats. Also, another thing is use simple bullet points. And when I say simple bullet points, it's just those dots that you generally have, standard dots on Microsoft Word. Some people tend to use a little bit of fancy bullet points. Like, for example, even on this presentation, if you see, there's this arrow mark, which is essentially the bullet point, but these are not really ATS friendly. So if you put it through a software, then they're most likely not, it's going to get confused about, it's going to be like, okay, what are these arrow marks? So you need to make sure that you're using just the simple bullet points. Your font is very important. You need to make sure that you're using standard fonts, which is either sans serif or surf fonts, which is essentially Times New Roman, Arial, or Garamond. And make sure that you're using font size of 11 or larger, because if you're using something which is a bit smaller, then again, it doesn't get picked up. And we've seen that again with all the softwares that we've been reviewing and using as well. Certain fonts, small fonts, they don't get picked up by the software. The other point that I mentioned is that you shouldn't put any logos or pictures in your CV ideally. As I just mentioned again, some people tend to use Apple logos or the logos of the companies that they worked for in their CVs. Then what happens is the software gets confused and the CV is likely not going to get parsed by the software. Yeah, another important point is that shading can void out words. Now, what does this mean? If some people, what they do is that there's section headings on their CVs, they tend to put it with a certain design, or they put a shade to that. So for example, education, experience, achievements, what they do is all these section headings, they put like a shade behind those sections. Now, the problem with this is that also creates issues with the software, because the software finds it difficult to read the words. So if the software is not able to pick up that this is education or this is work experience, then it's going to get confused and it will not be able to put your CV into sections. So it's very important that you have like a very simple CV without any of these complicated formats. And again, like I said, if I were to bring your attention to the CVs that we saw from Harvard Law School or Stanford Law School, you would notice that there was nothing fancy about the section heading. They just had simple section headings in Word, and then the description below. So these are some of the things that we need to bear in mind when we're working on our CVs. And that's what we're going to be doing today, as well as we build our CVs along with each other in today's workshop. So I'm going to cover a few networking tips as well, because getting a job is a combination of a great resume as well as networking. And getting a job today, a lot of times, is quite dependent on your strong networking skills. So I'm going to discuss a few things that worked for me, and I'll give you a few examples as well of what sort of helped me as well in my career. And I hope that you find it useful. So great. So I think the first point is LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn has become actually quite popular for networking. So I would really urge you to be active on LinkedIn if you're not already active. It's something that it's a very good platform to showcase your strengths, to showcase all the things that you've worked on, and you can do that effectively if you are engaging on LinkedIn and also active on LinkedIn. Now, one of the things that I would also like to mention about networking is that you need to remember the objective of networking, which is a relationship building. Before you approach somebody, let's say a partner of a law firm or even a general counsel, you have to essentially break the ice. Now, just to give you a short example, if you go on the streets and you meet a stranger, and then you just ask that stranger, hey, can you help me get a job, or do you have a job at your organization? How do you think they are going to react? They'd probably be like, okay, who's this person? Why is this person approaching me? And they would just be like, okay, just go away, don't bother me. So what I'm trying to say is that, and that's the same thing with LinkedIn. What happens is a lot of us, we connect with people on LinkedIn, and then we immediately send a message saying that, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me find this job? And this is exactly the same mistake that I've made as well. When I was moving to Dubai, I was, of course, applying for jobs. And one of the things is that even though, let's say in India, if you've worked at a top-tier law firm like Trilegal, or if you've even, it helps to, the brand sort of helps, and it's easy to get opportunities for an interview. Or even if you're like a graduate from a good law school, you actually get interviews, which is, people know, right? You've worked at a good law school. But what happens is when I was applying for opportunities in Dubai, nobody really knew what Trilegal was. Nobody really knew what an NLU Jodhpur was. So I realized that I had to really work extra hard to get noticed. So the first thing that I did was I would connect with people on LinkedIn, and then I would send them a message telling them a little bit about myself and the fact that I was looking for a job. But then, after, let's say after a couple of weeks, I realized that I wasn't getting any responses. And that's because, of course, nobody knew what Trilegal was, what NLU Jodhpur was. Second is, they were receiving from, what I understood was that they were receiving so many such messages from people that it's really hard for them to respond to each such message. Because I'm sure, like a partner of a law firm or a senior associate, they would at least be getting like some 10, 12 messages in a day, which are so similarly worded. So why would they respond to somebody like, let's say, me? So that's when I realized that, okay, I had to break the ice before actually asking them for a favor. So one of the things that I noticed works is that, it's important to share relevant articles. Like, for example, I started sharing my articles that I've written. And then I also try to break the ice by saying that, hey, I want some advice on the UAE legal market. So can you please, can we get on a call, or can we meet over coffee? And that's when I realized that I actually started getting more responses, because I wasn't asking them for a job. I was only asking them for advice. And also I was breaking the ice by maybe mentioning something nice about them, by saying that, hey, I've gone through a profile, I've read these articles and I found them useful. Do you think we can have a chat sometime whenever you're free? So something like this, a request where you're not really asking for a job, people will generally not say no to it unless they're super busy. And here again is another tip that I realized, is that it's important to follow up. So let's say that somebody doesn't respond to your message, where you've been quite polite and where you've not really asked them for anything specific. You've only asked for advice, or let's say for a call or a coffee meeting. Then make sure that you follow up, because people are busy. They tend to forget that you've sent them a message. So, but if you send them a follow-up request, what's going to happen is that it'll sort of ring at the back of their head that, oh, this person is following up. I should respond to that person. This person has been quite respectful of my time, so I should make sure that I respond to this person. So make sure that you follow up if somebody doesn't respond to you, and more likely than not, you will get a response. I've actually written an article on LinkedIn about networking, and I also have written about, I've also put in this article certain draft messages which you can potentially send to employers. And if you can, and I think whenever you have some time, I would say just go through it, and you'll probably get some ideas about certain networking tips that work, especially when you're an experienced lawyer. Great. So now we come to the exciting part of the workshop today, which is about building your resume, because all of us at the end of it, we are going to come out with our own resumes. So I would say if you could go to www.resigo.com, that would be great, because we will build our resumes together. And I'm also going to be building mine. So I'd like for all of you to participate with me. So I'm going to give you a few seconds just to log on to the website.
Priyasha, you've muted yourself by mistake. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I muted myself and then I couldn't. I muted and then I couldn't unmute. Perfect. Great. So, if you've all logged on to ResuGo.com, you can just click on yes. Great. So if you've all logged on to ResuGo.com, if you can just click on yes on the chat box. I just want to know. Yeah, we don't. That's a good question. We get that a lot. Do you store the person's information? Yes, all the users' information definitely we store in Resigo, but we do have a privacy policy, and we make sure that we stick to that. We do not share this information with any employer. Nothing. If we use any data, it's generally just anonymized data, but we make sure that we we comply with all the privacy policies and best practices. Great. So which of the following describes you? I think this would be experienced lawyer. Most of us are experienced lawyers here, so I'm going to click on this. How many years of experience do you have? I'm going to click on 10. So I'll click on yes. Your current or most recent lawyer. I'm just going to put, okay, let me just put my last employer. Actually, I'll put my current employer because that's more relevant. Have all of you reached this stage? Because we're now going to select our practice areas, and I just want to make sure that all of you are on this page as well with me. Because I think the best, if all of us are in this together, then we're going to see all our CVs together as well. So it would be great if all of you are with me. So I'm going to click on a few things here. I'll click on corporate. This is what I worked in my previous law firm: banking and finance, employment, and I did a little bit of TMT as well. So I'm going to now click on the sub-practice areas. So just want to make sure that all of you are with me. You can actually type your queries in the screen as well, because now we'll reach the part where this is an interactive session. So I'm going to be answering all your questions as well. But if you reach this stage, then just let me know and just type yes on the chat box. So I'm going to have to select my primary area of practice. So my primary area of practice is corporate. So I'm going to click yes here. And I'm now going to select all the sub-practice areas. So I'm going to select M&A, JV, corporate commercial. For banking and finance, I'll just put general lending, advisory. For employment, I would put advisory and compliance. For TMT, I would just put TMT transactions. And maybe I'll just click on privacy and data protection as well. No, I'm not getting option of sub-practice area. So maybe you need to select, have you clicked on any of these practice areas? And if you don't have, and if a particular sub-practice area is not here, then just do let me know, type it out, and then we'll make sure that we'll add it on the platform. So Govind, if you can just, if there's something that you can't find, then just type it out on the chat box and we'll keep a note of it. NI Act. Yeah, so that should, that would essentially be under litigation, I would say, disputes. I'm going to cancel because that's irrelevant for me. But if you put disputes and if you put civil or criminal, then maybe that would be relevant if you have NI Act experience. Perfect. So I've added this. Now I'm going to move on to the next stage. Environmental law. Okay, I think that's something that, yes, we've received some feedback there that we don't have environmental law. So we're going to add that on our platform as well. I would say for banking and finance, yes, writ practice. Okay, yeah, these are some really good points that we might have missed out on for disputes as well, because we know that disputes is such a large area that, for example, if you've done banking and finance litigation, what I would say is I would put it under civil litigation. Environmental law, like I said, we're probably going to add that at some point. And writ practice as well, I would put it under civil disputes. So these are some really good points, feedback that we've received. And yes, civil litigation covers a vast area. Definitely very valid. We'll make sure that we cover that as we build, as we build our platform. Especially, I know disputes is something that requires so much of changes. So this is the technical skills area, and I'm going to quickly just type in a few things that I've worked on. Emerging technology, tech documents. For employment, I would say I've worked on corporate transaction, redundancy, regulatory and policies. Banking and finance, just general loan and security documentation. Corporate M&A, JV docs, startups, company setup, DD. And I guess ESOPs as well. I'm going to click on next. So if all of you are here with me, then if you can just again click on next. Hold on. Not sure why I'm not able to move on to the next page. Okay, seems to be stuck. Okay, let me just refresh this. I'm just going to quickly do this as well. Unfortunately, I have to enter all of this again, but I'm just going to stick to, and if some of you have missed it, then you can actually do it along with me right now. Startups. Yeah. So now I'm going to log in. So I'm going to just log in through Gmail. Did any of you have any issues when you reach this page? Labor laws would be under employment, so make sure that you click on employment. So I'm going to log in with my Gmail because that's easy for me. I'm going to give you a few minutes to log in. And if all of you can just, if you can just type yes if you've logged in, then I know that we're all at the same pace. Okay. So I think here you would need to see your resume generated. So let me just check my dashboard. Okay, so I think we seem to have like a bug because I don't see my resume here that I just made. Okay, experience lawyer. Have all of you logged in? If you can just click on yes and let me know. Okay, great. So I'm gonna quickly add my personal details and save. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add here I'm actually gonna add my experience because for some reason there was a bug and I wasn't able to add my, because I think I've been actually doing a lot of workshops for law students. So I think something's up with my login details. So you can also add an additional job here. And when you add your additional job, you get these same questions and it becomes a second job in your profile. So in your resume. Startups, ESOP, let's see. So I actually get, if you look at this, I actually get work experience generated just by clicking a few links. So even though there was a little bit of a mess up from my end, but I quickly clicked on these, these pointers on my screen and I got my work experience generated. So let's have a quick look at this. As a senior member of the banking and finance practice, I have extensive experience acting for both borrowers and lenders. Now, this is something that, again, all of you, I would say, since you're experienced lawyers, you might have to amend this a little bit. But what the CV does is that it gives you an indication about how you can actually structure your work experience description. Also, a lot of these keywords that we've used, These are keywords that have actually been selected by top tier law firm partners, and they've mentioned that these are the keywords that we want to see, in our CV, in the CVs that come to our desk. So for example, if it's banking and finance, they want to see that you've acted for both, if not both, but at least they want to see things that you've actually acted for borrowers or lenders. They want to see that you've worked on bilateral or syndicated facility and security documents. If you're an experienced lawyer, then they would want to see words like intercreditor agreements, guarantees. So these are the keywords that we've actually made sure that they appear on our CV. But of course, if you haven't worked on them, then you have to amend it. And this is where you can actually amend it here, which is, you can actually make the changes right here. So let's say if I haven't worked on with multilateral agencies, I can just delete it here. And I can save it. For corporate, I'm just gonna, let's say, if I haven't worked on trust, I'm gonna delete this, but I've worked on startup and founders agreements, joint venture agreements, escrow agreements. So all of this is relevant. And I might just change this because I haven't worked on this. So I can actually amend my work experience section this way. And here is again where I can add a few key representations. So for example, let's say that I worked for a company called, okay, I'm just going to make some random names. Deloitte in relation to its USD 5 million acquisition of a majority stake in, let's say, Al Adil Go, a food and beverages company. So this is how I would describe, let's say, one of the transactions that I've worked on. Should work description be in the form of paragraph or bullets? That's a good question. It depends. Like right now, it's, I would say I generally put it depends on if you have a separate deal sheet or not. Like for example, currently the formats that we have on Resigo, it's, we have like a short description of basically what we've worked on, and then we also have like a bullet point, and we have like the key representations here. So what I would do is I would put these in bullet points. So I would put this as well in bullet points, and we have a rich text editor for that. But if this is too long, then I would also try and cut it short. So I wouldn't put more than 3 paragraphs for my work experience description. So here again, depending on the job description of the job. So for example, if I'm applying for a banking and finance role, I would try and cut down on my corporate experience. So some of these things will probably not be relevant. So I would, let's say, maybe just delete certain things here and there because it's not relevant for a banking and finance job. Maybe I would remove investments in startups because I need to make sure that my CV is relevant as well. Great. So, so Monica, I was just wondering, can we continue for a little bit more longer? I mean, if maybe what we could do is I could continue with the session because we had actually accounted for about an hour and a half. So if that's not an issue, can we continue? Because I know that we've, it's 1 hour that we've just crossed. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna continue because I just received a message saying that, you know, time is almost up, but anyways. So yeah, I mean, that's Prateek, that's how I would address this. I would try and make this a bit more shorter depending on the job description of the role that I'm working on. And then I would amend this part. Some people definitely do put their put some of their points in bullet points, which was also something you could do, but right now, since we already have our key representations in the work experience session, I wouldn't put the above in a bullet point, and I would probably just tailor this and amend this and make it a paragraph. If it were probably too long, then I would try and classify it into bullet points. But for now, I think this is quite standard. So I'm going to save this. And here again, I can add another employment. So let's say if I want to add my previous employer, I can just add senior associate. Let's say I joined in March, and then I was employed until Jan. I would just put corporate, M&A, JV, corporate commercial, IBC. Great. So here again, I've got the the suggested work experience description. And again, if I want to amend it, I can do that. So here is where I talk about my corporate experience. Here again, because sometimes it's a little difficult for us to predict what exactly we worked on, we would have to make a few amendments. So I would again make amendments based on my actual work experience. So as a senior member of the firm's corporate practice, I have extensive experience advising many of the top regional and multinational corporations on a broad range of corporate transactions. That's fine. I would make this a little shorter because I think I've probably not worked on everything, and some of them are repetitions. So I would delete it, and I would tailor this a little bit just to make sure that it's actually relevant to what I've done. And here again, I would add a few of my key deals, and I would put this in bullet points. Now, I've also got a professional summary here. And this, actually, a lot of you would have got this automatically because you probably, you logged in and you got an automatically generated CV. In my case, I had to begin right from the start because of a little bit of a bug at my end. Wouldn't detailed descriptions not go over the 1 to 2 page threshold? Yeah, that's a good point. So essentially, if it's going over the 1 or 2 page threshold, then you need to make sure that you're tailoring your work experience and you're reducing the amount of text. So the keyword that I would emphasize here on is relevance. So make sure that each of your job description is relevant to the job that you're applying for. So for example, if I'm applying for a corporate position, I would actually probably curtail this, and I would probably just keep it like 2 or 3 lines, and I would like just remove some of the irrelevant information. And I would focus a little bit more on this paragraph, and maybe I would make this my primary practice area, which is corporate. And if this is actually becoming too much, but generally, I think this would not cross 2 pages, I would probably put my deals in a separate sheet. And this is a feature that we're again working on. So for experienced lawyers, especially like 8+ year experience, we might just put the deals in a separate sheet. So what essentially you'd have is a small paragraph under each of your work experience. But most of you are in the 0 to 3 year experience bracket. So I think it's okay to put your deals here because it's good for an employer to see certain client names of the deals that you've worked on, and that's going to catch the employer's attention. So Bharpreet, I hope that answered your question. Another question from Swati: should we include internships in the CV? Well, if you've crossed, let's say, 1 to 2 years of a work experience, like I would say you don't really need to include internships. You can delete them. It all depends on how much information you can add in your CV. So if you haven't added enough, if your work experience doesn't have much information, then you can include certain internships. For example, another example that I can give you is if you've done some really great internships. So let's say you did an internship in a UK law firm, then you might just want to add that because that could catch the employer's attention. Or if you've done an internship at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas or one of the big law firms, you can definitely add that. And that could potentially add value to your CV. So there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to drafting your, drafting a resume. So you need to see, again, based on the job that you're applying for. So for example, if you're applying to a job to J Sagar, and right now you're working in DSK Legal, and you've worked in DSK Legal for 2 years, but you've actually done an internship in J Sagar before, then you might want to mention that internship in your CV because what the employer will do is that they'll try and check with the partner who you interned with. So let's say you interned with Mr. XYZ, then they will probably check with Mr. XYZ. They'll be like, oh, you know what, Swati interned with us before, and now she's applying for a job. What do you think about her? Do you think we should employ her? What's your feedback? So like I said, it all depends on where you're applying to, and accordingly, you need to tailor your CV. I just wanted to check if any of you also faced any bugs while reaching this page, because like I said, there were certain bugs at my end, so I'm gonna have to check that. But did you manage to reach this page and have your, let's say, personal details and your professional summary generated? Did you have that? So I'm going to add this myself. So generally what happens is if I, click on the buttons initially, then I get an auto-generated professional summary. I'm just going to type that myself. I have also worked on corporate summaries. Okay, I'm going to save this. And so essentially all my personal details have gotten saved. There's a summary, there's a work experience section, and the rest of the details are something that I can actually add myself. Education, I can quickly do that. And it's very quick, so let's say that I've studied at NU Jodhpur. I can just quickly add this here and it will come on my screen. From 2005 to 2010. So here again, it would get populated in my CV automatically. So I just wanted to check with you if you faced any issues while creating a CV, because we've done a lot of this with law students, but for the experienced lawyers, we know that there are a few bugs here and there, so we want to improve our product. So if there's any issues that you faced, if you can let me know, that would be amazing. Like, have all of you reached this stage and been able to create your CV? If you can just click, if some of you who are with me, if you can just click some of your feedback here, whether you've reached stage, whether you've actually got an auto-generated summary for your work experience. Yes, okay. Thanks so much, Avani, for letting us know. I'm going to add my language as well, because this is something that we've seen in, you know, all the other CVs as well. It's important to add languages. I'm unable to add my education qualification properly. So I'm adding it here. Oh, what is the specific issue that you faced, Kushika? If you can just let me know. If you can either type it out, that would be useful. I'm also going to add my bar counsel experience here, because that's very important for experienced lawyers, especially when you go and apply for international positions. They really want to see when you qualified. So I would put it as 2010, and I would add it here. So your bar admission and professional memberships is really important, especially when you go abroad. And nowadays as well, I think a lot of law firms, they want to see whether you've actually cleared, whether you've registered with the bar council. Okay, so Kriti has mentioned there are a lot of columns missing, like I'm not able to see pro bono and recognition column. Okay. Yeah, pro bono is, if you scroll down the page, you should see pro bono, Kriti. Unless you added, unless you clicked on another flow. If you're an experienced lawyer and you clicked on the experienced lawyer flow, you would see pro bono. But if, let's say you clicked on law student, and then you might not really see the pro bono flow. Pro bono is useful again for some law firms if you've done some interesting pro bono work. Like, for example, if you've helped a particular nonprofit with compliance, then that's very interesting work and could be relevant for a corporate job as well. So for example, I'm going to add here, and let's say that I've done some work for them in the compliance space. So advised on compliance with the Wildlife Act and the municipality laws. Municipality laws, Mumbai municipality laws, including the relevant licenses, etc. This could potentially be an interesting experience for an employer, because I've actually done, this is sort of corporate work related. Kriti, I hope you found the pro bono section on your screen. No, okay, that's really strange. It would have been great. So what you could do is you could just maybe we could connect after this call as well, and you could send an email with your resume to hello@resigo.com. So if any of you have faced any issue, we would really appreciate it if you could just let us know some feedback, because we are improving our product, and some of these issues we would have to probably rectify it with our technology team as well. So I'm happy to, get on a call with you, and you can share a screen and we can have a discussion. Great. So yeah, this is what the preview, this is the preview that we get once we've created our CV. And as you will have seen, it's quite a simple CV. It's very basic. It's similar to the CVs that we've seen on Harvard Law School and Stanford Law School, and that's exactly what we've tried to do. These CVs are ATS friendly. It is going to go through an ATS system, and it's not going to get rejected. Also, a lot of these keywords that we're using, they're exactly what employers would be looking for if you're applying for a specific position. So yeah, that's in short, the sort of CVs that you get here. You would have to do a little bit of tailoring, like I said, depending on the job that you're applying to. You also have to make sure that you enter the details of the deals that you've worked on. And once you've done that, then you can download your CV by generating a PDF. And you can also duplicate your resume. So let's say that this is the job that you're applying for when you're applying to, let's say, DSK Legal. You can just save your CV like this, and then you can duplicate it. And let's say that you're now applying to Trilegal. So you can create another CV saying Trilegal. So, and here you can again amend it. So here, if you're applying to another role, you can change your work experience, or you can tailor it accordingly, make sure that you put the relevant deals, and tailor your CV. So you can create multiple CVs, and also the advantage is that you can always access your CV from anywhere. So let's say that you don't have access to your laptop, you can just log on to ResuGo, access your CV, download it, and then send it for apply for a particular position. So you don't always need your personal laptop on you. All your CVs will be stored on your dashboard. And I've created so many CVs here. A lot of them are essentially law student CVs, but I've created. I can create multiple CVs, and I think that's one of the key things that we were looking for. Now, one of the things that I just wanted to check with you, is there anything any other feature that you think would be useful? Because I know we received a lot of interesting feedback on maybe certain practice areas that are missing. Let's see another question from Swati. How to prepare a resume which helps for transition from civil litigation to corporate? Here again, you need to demonstrate that you want to move to corporate. So when you're putting your civil litigation experience, what I would say is that try to focus on the matters which are relevant to corporate. So let's say that you've worked on a civil litigation matter, which is essentially corporate. So for example, you've worked on a dispute in relation to an investment deal, then that could potentially be relevant for a corporate partner. So try and focus on that experience in your work experience description. Or if you've done like a bankruptcy filing for a company, that would again be relevant for a corporate partner. So whatever matters that you've worked on for civil litigation, I would say try and think about what is the closest that could be relevant for a corporate partner, and make sure that you highlight that experience. Also, another thing that you could do is you can you can mention something in your professional summary about the fact that you want to move to corporate. You can maybe you can add some articles. I would say start writing articles on corporate matters if you haven't done yet, and then you can add that here. So let's say that you've done some work on due diligence. You can just mention that here, or you published it on some website. So you need to, it takes time to build your credentials, but you can start doing these things, and this will show the partner that you're actually intending to change your your field from litigation to corporate. And also, like I said, another good tip that I can give you is like a networking tip, which is, you're a litigation lawyer. I would say start connecting with the corporate lawyers on LinkedIn. There will be a lot of lawyers who also switched from litigation to corporate. So just send them a message saying that, hey, I'm a litigation lawyer. I do want to make that switch to corporate. So please, could you help me out with some tips? Okay, can we get on a call? When the whole lockdown ends, then you can also be like, hey, can we meet for coffee or get on a Zoom call, as I would like to get some tips on how to move from litigation to corporate. So this is how you would build your network. And once you've built your network, then word would also get around and people would try and help you make that switch. And one of the things that we forget is that people want to help each other. It's just that sometimes they don't have the time. But if you make an earnest effort, if you actually show the enthusiasm and the willingness, and you take the effort when you send a message to somebody, they will definitely help you out. But in your resume, definitely there are a lot of things that, like I said, you can highlight from your civil litigation experience, which would be relevant to a corporate lawyer. I would be very interested to work with somebody who's done some, let's say, bankruptcy matter, or they've done some shareholder disputes. So it would be very relevant for a corporate partner, I would say. So I hope all of you have found the session useful. I know there were a few glitches today, and I apologize for that. But I guess the lesson that we also have learned is that, okay, there are technical bugs that sometimes happen. So we definitely will work on that. But apart from that, if there are any questions, I would say do write to us at hello@resugo.com. And if you want to share your CV as well, I'm not sure whether you can do that over Zoom chat, but you can always email that to us, and we can have a discussion on maybe what we can improve. I've got some interesting feedback, and a lot of it is from some of them are private messages. Thanks, Kushika. I'm glad that you enjoyed the session.
I personally enjoyed it a lot because even though I've gone through the website in the past, like I had a detailed session in the past, but there were quite a few new things which I myself got to learn, and especially this is helpful for those students who are starting from scratch. If they don't have anything in if they don't have any particular format or don't have any background from where to begin with, like a lot of students come and say, how do we even make a CV? They don't know. In law school, since you are also from NU Jodhpur and I'm from NUJ, so I remember in first year itself, they used to ask us, there are different societies and committees, and they all ask, send us your CV. Now first year kid doesn't even know what a CV is, and from there the rat race begins, and then we keep on making anything and everything which we think might fit. The good thing about this format is that this is also relevant in India. Like a lot of students, what they do is they pick templates from Google, where there are so many fancy templates. There is something in the brochure format, something in, I don't know what all. I've seen such crazy samples. So in this is more formal. This is exactly how people want the CVs to be in India, especially in India also. It should be crisp, clean and neat also. Like I've seen students using vibrant colors like dark blue or pink or something in the CV. They are picking these from the templates available on Google. So since like if this is available free of cost on a website, anybody can log in and do this. I would always recommend that if you're sending a first CV, you should just spend like 15 minutes on this and you'll be done, and you'll have everything you need in front of you.
That's a very good summary of it, Samanika. Exactly. Like I think one of the issues, like I said, because we're a legal recruitment company, we see so many different formats. So it's very important to have a very formal and simple format, especially for lawyers. There's one question from Balpreet that I'll probably just address before we end. Is it better to have one general detailed CV and other tailored CV for specific assignments or roles? Yeah, I mean, you can definitely create one general detailed CV, but I would just say that on the platform, you have the opportunity to keep tailoring your CVs. So make good use of that. But yes, you can definitely have one detailed CV, but if you're applying for a particular role, make sure that you're tailoring it and then you're applying for the role. I hope
Yes.
that answers the question.
So your
Please,
general detailed CV should be for your personal reference. Like I call it the rough draft of CV. It could go on to as many pages as you want. But for your tailored CV, it should be specific as per the requirement. Like in the first slide, Priyasha said, you have to think from sales point of view. What is the other person looking for from you? So you just have to sell only those points.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, Monica. It's very important that you just mentioned salient points, and this is something that a lot of people don't really follow when they're applying for a position. So I hope that's if that's the key thing that you've taken from today's session, then I think that's something that will really put you in good stead for your future applications.
Right. So I'm pretty sure this was quite helpful. I'll request the participants to now rate the session if you don't have any further doubts on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. So kindly.
Well, that puts me on a spot. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's good to get feedback. It's definitely good to get feedback because especially for experienced lawyers, there's just so much that can go into a CV. So when we get feedback, it's always something that we welcome because there is a lot of things that we would want to improvise on.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Kushika, Bhavpreet. I mean, I know that there were a few bugs that we encountered, so I mean, we're definitely gonna work on that and make sure that they're fixed.
So on an average, you've received above 9, and there are a few students who send the message privately by mistake. So
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I think it's a great score for us. So
okay,
thank
perfect.
you so much, Priyasha. This was really helpful for everybody, not just for the students, but for me also.
Yeah.
And
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Samanka, if you can also just email me at the chat because some of them have sent some really good suggestions, and we would like to incorporate them in in our platform.
Check with the tech team. I'm really sorry. I'm not very pro with Zoom.
Yeah, that's fine.
Recorded. I'll ask them if there's an option of recording.
Yeah, I think there is. So
okay, all right. I'll ask them to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Priyasha, for your time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you everybody for joining in. Had a very good interactive session. So all the best for your future opportunities. And like I said, connect with us on LinkedIn, and we can hopefully help you further as we improve our product.
Right. So Priyasha is also available on LinkedIn. Her full name is the spelling remains the same.
Yeah, spelling is the same. So
CORRIE. And I'm also available on LinkedIn with my full name. So if you have any doubts, you can drop us a message there. And for those who if we upload this recording in future on YouTube, and you can just go back and refer to it again. All right. Thank you. Have a great
day. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.